let's cut our teeth on it. If you look up Jack Keller.
Yeah, AJ knows this site.
Sure, we didn't. I think we all learned quite a lot there. At least I did, for sure, and I know a bunch of people. So it's an older website. It's not current with today's modern science, but there still is a tremendous amount of good information there. And then lastly, the owner of White Labs, Chris White, along with another PhD fellow that worked with him in the White Labs laboratories, they wrote a beer book, and I have the book and I've read it.
We linked it in last week's show, I think.
Oh, nice, awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did.
If you just look up Chris White's yeast book, you'll find it.
Yeah, it's like the Yeast Bible or something like that.
Exactly.
Hang on, I'll find it.
That's a tremendous book. There's a lot of really good information that I grabbed a hold of and started using.
Yeast, the Practical Guide to Beer Fermentation, and I'm linking it now.
Yes. Now, one thing we want to keep in mind, I think that too many people, in my opinion, and you guys can speak to this too, I think too many people want to separate the concept of beer versus mead versus wine.
It's all fermentation.
It's all fermentation. Yeah. It's all the same strains. And so I think that it's not fair to say, oh, well, that doesn't count because it's beer, or that doesn't count because it's wine. I think when we make mead, we create an environment that's more difficult for the yeast than beer or wine by far. But we've done our best job possible to give you guys the access to the modern science, particularly in this last series of podcasts that we've been going through.
Yeah.
You know, I can promise you this: if you follow suit with what we've given to you guys in the podcast over the last couple months, if you do those things like we've spoke of and taught, I promise you should not very often have any issues with faults or problems in your fermentations. You should be able to make very clean meads in short order if you follow the steps that we've provided on the podcast.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to keep providing this kind of information, so it's definitely out there. But we probably better wind this thing up because we're now over 3 hours. And I think that was there was one more question.
Well, let's get it.
Let's get it done. Okay. Yep. Stephen Rigsby asks, if this goes back to your yeast discussion like several episodes ago, if yeast can only bud so many times, then where did the scar-free dried yeast come from? It's a chicken or the egg question. So
yeah, sure. That's a great question, and I remember I don't remember what day it was. I remember the impact that it had on me, and I was like speechless and blown away. And I'd been a mead maker and a student for at least 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. This came to me only in the last 5 or 6 months ago, that at any time during our fermentation, half of the yeast in your vessel were just born.
Wow.
Yeah, cutting for doubling time sounds about right.
If go play with the math. I'm telling any time. Right, but in any time that you stop your fermentation, half of the yeast that are in there were just born.
Wow. And
have no scars. But now the important part to remember in all this, and I'm going to actually write a piece here in the next week or so in regards to the difference between pitching with the proper amount of yeast parts per million or yeast cells per volume versus creating a starter, because people think, well, I can make a starter and that's the same, and it's really not, because I love that you have chewed on that yeast piece about the budding and the daughter cells and all, a starter is no way even close to the same thing as beginning from the very beginning of a proper pitch rate. And so the question goes back to, again, can you read that to me one more time, Vicki, please?
Yeah, hang on a second. Okay, if yeast can only... Sorry, my browser froze on me for a second. If yeast can only bud so many times, then where did the scar-free dried yeast come from? And that's going back to your conversation where they bud X number of times and then die.
Yes, or they continue to mutate, and then like a number 8 daughter cell can only produce X amount, which is less than what the number 4 daughter cell could produce.
Right.
And so ideally what we want to do is we want to pitch enough yeast at the very beginning that they're done with the fermentation, or at least they're done with population before they've had to bud very far. A friend of mine, John Talkington, has worked for Dogfish Head breweries for, I think, 12 or 15 years maybe. And I was talking to him a few months back, and he said that their scientists have figured out how much yeast to start with so that they're completely done with the fermentation. I think he told me in nine reproduction phases. So by the time the first brand new cells that went in there have reproduced 9 times, there's no more need for the cell mass to produce anymore. And that's really what we want to do too. We want to pitch enough to begin with that we don't have a whole bunch of those mutated, sick and not real happy and not really looking too much like mom. We don't want a bunch of freaks in there working on our mead. We want
mutated zombie yeast.
Yeah. So going back to try to answer your question, I guess when you buy yeast from the store in a dry package, half of those would have to be brand new. And I would think because these guys understand this whole budding thing, reproduction, mutation, I really don't know how to tell you how old the moms were that produced the first half of the new, but I have no idea. Hopefully, you guys, here in the next little bit, after the first of the year, I'm going to start trying to get some of the scientists that actually work and run these different yeast facilities to get on here and talk in very specific manners about the science of yeast and all of these types of things that honestly I only know a little bit about.
Okay.
What were you going to say, AJ?
I'm just wondering if they use something like a biological contactor instead, where they've got the parent cells in a suspension of some type that can be filtered out, so that, like, I've seen somewhere they've got the bacteria attached to a wheel, and the wheel just goes through and does its job. And it's possible that when they bud, then if they can fix the parent cells, then the bud cells fall off and they can be collected and packaged up.
Wow.
I'm wondering about that.
Yeah.
I've studied some biological processes, but it would be really interesting when we talk to people who actually make yeast.
Well, it'd be really cool if we could get like White Labs and Lalamand and Y yeast and all the different, get a representative in there from there, and that would be cool. Because then they could talk science, and my eyes will cross, and I'll just stay muted, but it'll be really interesting. Told you I failed chemistry, so I'm a seat of the pants mead maker. It's the only way I know how to work.
High school chemistry, I got a 92, and I slept through half the classes.
Yeah, fuck you.
Hello.
Yeah, really. That's why we click explicit when we put this show up. Alrighty then. That was all the questions, and all right. So let's see. Okay, so we do have another PSA here. So if you join us at the AMMA Mead Conference, you'll get to hear some of these scientists talk. That's going to be in Broomfield, Colorado on March 14th and 15th in 2018. There'll be 2 days and 2 tracks of amazing mead speakers. So there's going to be science, there's going to be building your business, there's going to be mead best practices. You name it, we've got it. And there's even a breakout track which is going to have a panel and an in-depth mead sensory evaluation. So tickets are on sale now, and there are a limited number. I've got a limit as to how many people I can pack into those rooms, or the hotel gets pissed at me. So go to mead-makers.org and get your tickets now. This is going to be a wham bang show. I've got a lineup. Oh, and now I can officially announce that our keynote speaker at the conference is going to be Dr. Patrick McGovern. He is basically the booze archaeologist. He's the guy that basically all those really cool beers that they have at Dogfish Head. Dr. Pat discovered him. He found the Midas tomb in the mead pot in there. He found the Jiang dynasty, which was 8,000 years old, and they reverse engineered the mead from that. There was Jiahu, which was, I think that was the Chinese one, and then there was another one that was in South America. He's really amazing. If you go to meadmakers.org and put your mouse over the conference thing, there's a drop down and you'll see the keynote. Click on it. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there about him. He's really amazing. And you got to hear this guy talk. He's something else. But
cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I can't even tell you how thrilled I am to have him there. I'm like a huge fangirl. I always thought archaeology would be the coolest thing in the world to do. The problem is there's no jobs in archaeology.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but check that out. Upcoming events, November 17th, St. Ambrose Winery has got Alfredo Improv. And then November 17th, they've got Dale Wicks. And all of these are linked on the episode page as well if you want to click through to them. November 18th and 19th, Starlight Meadery is having a get ready for Turkey Day. This is old. We're past that now. What did I do? Not update it? I guess I didn't update it. All right, never mind. All of my events are old. I could have sworn I updated this. Oh, wait, I did. It was updated on the show. Hang on. I updated it on the episode page and forgot to copy it to the show notes. Bear with me a second. Yeah, well, so I got sidetracked on something else. Okay, here we go. November 22nd, Boss Meadery has Maggie Shea's music. November 22nd, Brothers Drake Meadery is having Jazz Wednesday with Alex Burgoyne and his friends. November 30th, Western Reserve Meadery, chocolate truffle making with Anam. And Mead, of course. Yeah, right? I want to go to that one.
Yeah.
And then December 8th, 810 Meadworks is having a Christmas pajama party. So, well, that'd be a hoot. I actually have some footy jammies with skulls all over them.
Oh, I'm quite not surprised.
Yeah, I found them in a store somewhere. I just had to have them. So that's and once again, if you've got an event you want us to mention on Got Mead Live or put up on the event list on the website, just go ahead and send us an email at gotmeadlive@gotmead.com, and we'll take care of that for you. So, and just so you guys know, next week is our last show of the year. We take December off because, hey, we got lives too. And it gets real busy, in December for pretty much everybody. So we take a break. That lets us plan for the new year and get things ready. So next week is the last show.
Gives everybody else a chance to catch up on anything they missed, right?
Yeah, it gives you a chance to listen to all the ones you haven't listened to yet. So.
Especially when they run to like 3 hours.
Oh, God, yeah. And Ryan was telling us the shows need to be shorter. I'm looking at you,
Oops.
Ryan. Just really looking at you. Okay, so that's all I got. Chris wants me to do a double plug. All right, Chris, just because I think you're cool. Hang on. Let me pull it up here.
December 23rd.
December 23rd. Come on. I don't know, my browser is like being a bitch today.
Pig plus fire plus mead. Enough said.
Yeah, Pig plus fire plus mead. Yeah. Laughing Dragon Meadery on December 23rd is having their first annual Yule Feast fundraiser at a permanently built Renaissance Fair site in Corona, California. Head mead maker Chris Hodge has invited all his fellow chef friends. Chris is a professional chef, for those of you that may not know, out to make their take on a traditional Yule ham. They are ordering a few whole hogs that will be taken apart into their primal cuts. A week before the event, the names of those cuts will be thrown into a hat that the chefs will then draw from to make